I'll just introduce the subject of today, and I wanted to offer that we will take 30 seconds to honor the 80th year of the bombing of Hiroshima. We will hold space to mourn and reflect, and to connect also with the ongoing, actually, suffering of as we see today, and the ongoing war here in Palestine, Israel, and around the world. We will, and we're honored to have here Rabbi Malkah Binah Klein, Stephen Apkon, and Marcina Hale that will guide us through this pause of remembrance. And also, before we start talking about the subject of the day, David, are you here? Yeah. All right. I know you're not feeling well, so David will talk a few words about SATYAM, just so we can remember part of this movement we are here as. David, are you here? Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Okay. Um, and then after the talk, we will break out maybe to breakout rooms to have a small conversation with their regarding the subject we talked about. Then we will gather again in the whole group and reflect on what we met in the small groups, and we'll have the closing. So that's the intention of the day. I want to take 30 seconds. I will tell you when it's over, so you don't need to hold the time. And I want to, maybe I can offer that all of us will sit straight, like maybe, or comfortably, wherever you're at. And maybe take a inhale and an exhale and go back to the breath. If it's comfortable for you, maybe we can close our eyes. Maybe you can put your hand on your heart. Slowly go back to the body. Maybe you can notice a certain place in your body that feels more in need of attention today. So I can offer, maybe you can put your hand on that place in your body. And I want us to just share a moment of condolence with the people who have suffered, or maybe even still suffer, the atrocities of the World War and the attack on Hiroshima. And just share our part by setting our attention to the pain that war can cause. And just send love and light to the people who are in need in these times. Can be a certain person that you think about, can be just people, it can be ourselves, and this may be certain part of our body in need for attention, and it can be the world itself suffering from violence that is not yet cured. And slowly open our eyes. Maybe move the tips of our fingers, of our toes. Go back to the body, into the computer or the phone. Maybe you can look in the eyes of a certain someone who catches your eye here in the Zoom and send that certain someone just a blessing and of love and peace. And I want us to come back to our session today and remind us that we're part of a very, very beautiful movement um, initiated by SATYAM, already 52 days. And it's part of a movement that is actually calling to create a community that proves on a daily basis that there are people that want to do it differently. David, I'll be happy if you can say a few words about Satyam, just so we know part of what we are, just for the people who joined us today.
Yeah, thank you, Raz. Thank you, Marcina, Stephen, Malkah. Thank you, everyone who's here joining us. Yes, maybe to start with Satyam, that we founded Satyam 1.5 years ago, and it's a continuation of the peace work that we've been doing, joint peace work in the West Bank. We've been doing for 14 years. We had a previous project where we lived together, Palestinians, Israelis, and internationals, and Satyam was opened 1.5 years ago as an antidote, as a response to the after October 7 continuous strengthened or increasing trauma response and polarization and separation and violence. So we said, no, even more than ever, we need a space, a home where we can keep meeting, because all places that usually hosted also joint gatherings, joint work, meeting in the occupied territories have completely shut down. So we opened Satyam to keep meeting, to keep having a space for other organizations to meet and to do their work, but also to keep meeting as community and come together, have a home, sit, eat, talk, share the pain, share what we experience, keep supporting each other in these times of darkness, to walk the path of a shared future on the land where dignity, justice, and safety for every human being. Because we deeply believe that we were just raised to be enemies. We are all human beings. We're brothers, sisters, siblings, family, living in a land that so many care deeply about, and that it actually is the system that keeps creating enemies and telling us a story of separation rather than something real, as we are born equal and as we die equal. And so we also believe that in each of the religions, the core of it is this essence of cherishing human life and the dignity of it, and that a life is worth a life, and we cannot make one life more valuable over another. And this dehumanization has deeply, deeply, deeply entered our consciousness and our belief systems, so that we come to be able to treat each other in the way that we do, so that we understand together what is the true thing that we want to change and fight, if we want to call it, which is first of all those structures in ourselves, that we come to remember our own humanity, our own heart, and remember each other. And then we see what is the thing that truly is creating separation. And it's these systems that we grew up in. And they're also very, very old, the colonial structures and systems that make us believe one person is better or more worthy than another. And And those first have to be deconstructed in ourselves, and then we can join forces to deconstruct them in our society and build a reality in the future that holds all of our children, no matter what religion or ethnicity or shape or form, as wonderful and worthy and a gift, and that actually our cultures can and our differences can be celebrated and rejoice from them. So we stand with all of life in Satyam, and the hunger strike we went on 52 days ago was an outcry, was a resort of feeling so desperate to show to the world that what is happening, it is already a wrongdoing for many decades, the dispossession of Palestinians, of their lands, the dehumanization, and the growing radical right-wing politics that keep just causing violence and more violence, that with the situation in Gaza, with the response of Israel towards October 7, we just felt that the degree of dehumanization just grew to a whole nother level. And we do call it a genocide. We believe it is. We believe that it is nothing to do with self-defense anymore, and that it is a deliberate plan and policy of right-wing agenda to actually resettle Gaza and take all the land, and that we wanted to show the world that what is happening is wrong. And me as a Jew, I have to stand up. I have to speak up against this actions of my people, because it's deeply, deeply inhumane. And I understand, I have compassion for the trauma that it comes from, but we need to stand strongly with all people. And it means we have to stand even stronger right now with the Palestinians, even as Jewish around the world, and anyone around the world, to force our governments to stop supporting Israel and their actions, and to call for justice, to call for a stop of the war, stop allowing food and medicine into Gaza, because people are actually dying of hunger every day, not only dying to be shot on the way to get food, but they're dying of hunger. And we said, until they eat, we won't. Just really take full embodied solidarity with the suffering, to not eat while they don't eat an hour away from us, and to make that choice. And we felt that choice has power. And we wanted to make that choice and show the world that we can choose. We can choose. We can choose to be in solidarity. We have so much we can do. Each one of us has a lot to do. We can speak. We can demonstrate. We can strike. We can hunger. We can and to encourage, to create this movement, to encourage everyone to do more, because we know how it feels, isolated, paralyzed, in shock at the face of the horrors we see. And we wanted to build a movement where we can support each other and encourage each other to do what we can, and to create a movement that joins so many other people around the world in actually taking a stand and not being silent. Because if we stay silent, we're complicit. And to bring on realities on these Zooms of Gaza, of the West Bank, of activists that show the realities, so that we know what we're speaking about. It's not some distant fantasy from the news. It's like direct connection to the people who experience this, and direct connection to projects that actually do something to get support for them. So this was the reason we went on hunger strike, and I am so deeply grateful, and we are so deeply grateful, SATYAM, me, for every one of you who joined and who keeps acting and not being silent and acting, because that's what we have. It's our own humanity. I do it for my humanity, also for my humanity. Because if I don't, I lose my own humanity. And so we call you. And someone said the other day, we're humanizing, rehumanizing together. And that's what it feels. That's what's needed in this planet. In my experience, it humanizes me if I take a stance and in solidarity and I speak my truth, even if it creates opposition. I try to speak it with love so that the humanity can reach through, not to fight, but to unite. And so we stand with all people. Of course, we also stand with the hostages that are right now suffering and their families. And we stand with the political prisoners who suffer and their families suffer. We stand with everyone that experiences injustice. And I believe that the hostages, they're also paying the price for a policy that prioritizes political agenda instead of bringing them home. And more and more people are starting to realize that. Thank God, also in Israel, and going to the streets to end this insanity. And European governments are starting to put pressure. Even the German government, my government here, is starting to speak out. And this is important. And it's because of people. It's of people going to the street. And it's of all those brave ones who keep sharing those images of Gaza so it reaches everywhere. So we wake up to the suffering and we say no more for anyone. And this is why we're here. And we're so deeply grateful for everything that you've joined and the path you've walked with us. And today we're here also to remember the atrocities of some of the atrocities of Hiroshima, of the World War II, because we need to remember those moments where we didn't stop the insanity, to remember that we need to stop the insanity while it's happening, and it's happening right now. And there's no one to wait for. We see what politicians do. It's us, the people, that change reality, that changed the apartheid system, that brought rights to people that didn't have rights over and over again, even to women here in this country. We need the people to stand up, and then something changes. So it's up to us. And I'm speaking to you from the hospital right now because I've not been feeling well the last week, and my heart felt not right and not good. And I'm back in Germany. I landed and I went to the doctor and he sent me to the hospital and they just checked my heart. And they said it's not well. It's not right. It's too weak. And they actually want to keep me here. So I'm just sitting here with my wife Dana, and we're trying to figure out what to do. And they want to do further checks, but they want to keep me here. So it's just now happening. So I'm just informing you live. Yeah. So I'm deciding what to do right now. And we said in the beginning that this strike is not to kill ourselves. It's
Thank you.
it's hard. It's hard to, because the cause is so important, and yet we said we're not here to harm ourselves. We go as far as our bodies can carry us. But it's also heartbreaking because the people in Gaza, nothing has changed. Thank you. Thank you for your solidarity. And just now media approaches us just now after 52 days, they care. They feel it's worth a story.
Need all of our with your heart right now, and I trust in your wise discernment about your next steps. And I want to thank you and May and Satyam for the gift you've given me these past many weeks. And when I learned about your hunger strike, um, I realized that what I could do was to come as many days as I can to stand in solidarity with the hunger strike. And what a gift I've received to sit with people in Gaza in real time, to sit with Palestinian activists in the West Bank, to sit with Israelis who are committed to keeping their eyes wide open and who are just have such tremendous hearts and finding ways to raise consciousness, to sit with Americans, to sit with Germans. I even sat with a young man in Iran. I'd never sat with someone in Iran before. And what a tremendous gift that we are, like, I am rehumanizing, and this is the medicine that I needed. And this is my first time speaking in public about something that I've struggled with my whole adult life since I came to my first sense of consciousness of where I came from and what it meant to come from Los Alamos, New Mexico, which is a town that was created in 1943. The United States government took over an area in New Mexico, a very beautiful mountaintop, in order to draw scientists from all over the country to create a new kind of weapon, the new kind of weapon that would be made from the new science of splitting atoms. And when I got to college, I read as much as I could about the making of nuclear weapons. And one of the books I found was a scientist from those early days saying that this was the closest we came to making a baby without woman. And it was so perverse that the sense of, like, the joy of scientific, technical discovery, um, and even, a lot of the people talked about the sweetness of the scientific process, the technical process. And so we humans are so complicated. We take joy in. And I also, as I've been studying about this, came to discover that in the state of Nevada in the United States, there were many above ground, what they call tests. They're really nuclear weapons explosions, detonations. And that people who lived in viewing distance would sell seats. They put up bleachers and sell seats to come watch these explosions of nuclear weapons, that this was entertainment. And so my parents moved there in 1969. And it was a town where pretty much the vast majority of people in town.
Dear Malcha, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I just want to say goodbye because now I have to deal with the doctors here. Okay?
So much love. Our hearts are with your heart, David.
I'm so grateful for all of you. I love you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Blessings.
David Rafur Shalema from Australia. For the Bishop of
Bye, everyone. Have a beautiful
Thank you, David.
togetherness, meaningful time. Bye.
Let's just take a moment to send our love to David as he, for the strength of his heart and for the wise discernment around his next steps. Caring for ourselves is what comes first. So that we can care for others. And I'm so grateful for this opportunity today to, so grateful to Marcina and Stephen um, for inviting me to have this conversation with you, and really grateful. I see that a number of my friends, a friend who's in New Mexico doing activism around nuclear weapons, and some friends who also grew up in Los Alamos are here. And the message that's been coming through really strong as I've been here, sitting here in SATYAM this many weeks, is that I think what I'm learning is just so important for all of us as we face wartime and rising fascism, which is that I grew up in a beautiful town, a beautiful mountain town where we could see the stars at night, abundant stars, where we could go hiking on beautiful trails, where we had delicious water from deep down in the earth to drink. Our town wins awards for being one of the best places to live in the United States. And we had wonderful schools because it was because of the relationship with the United States government. We got extra money for our schools, and so we had like really wonderful school system. And so we were living in this fantasy world, but also it was a world of lies. And I was walking in my neighborhood in Philadelphia the other day, and I found in the free library, I need to take off my thing to, hold on one second.
Just a second, Malka. I just wanna, Alexander, are you raising your hand to ask a question or something?
Yes, actually, yes. I want. Well, I must say that I'm horribly worried about David and about and I was wondering if it's might be about time to, as a group, maybe to somehow show our worry to those two dear persons and ask them somehow if it's not about time to end this strike. I mean, I talked to my maybe a month ago already, but I'm really worried, and I just wanted to express my worries and to maybe to raise this kind of question to you if it's not about time that we all say something. Sorry for interrupting. Just I couldn't not to.
Thank you, Alexander. Maybe I can hold space for this and just say that I want Malka to proceed with the content, and maybe we can whoever relates to what Alexander said, maybe we can hold a few moments after we finish the session for whoever wants to talk about this and maybe share specifically on this subject what can be done.
Thank you, Alexander.
I think that's
Okay, Sad, do you want to say something? So I wanted to share that I was walking in my neighborhood and I picked up this book in one of the free libraries, War is a Lie by David Swanson, and it's become medicine to me. It's like a security blanket. And he talks about all the lies involved in getting people to go to war, and that the people who benefit versus the people who sacrifice are very different people, and that how leaders can even change their story, that lies change as is convenient. And so it's just been such important medicine um, to just take in, to affirm that the lies that we are taught, that so I grew up in this beautiful place, and I also grew up in a delusion, in a constructed delusion. I even found a book that explained how they constructed the town such that it would be a desirable place to come live, because if you just advertise, hey, come work on nuclear weapons, that wouldn't necessarily be an attractive thing, not to most people. And I even remember when I was meeting someone who moved to town with a commitment he was not going to work on nuclear weapons, but he settled his children and the schools are good, and his job changed, and the only way he could stay in Los Alamos was to take a job related to weapons work. And so he made that sacrifice of his moral sacrifice in order, because his family was so well set up. And I wanted to share, and it's been really hard for me to come out of the delusion. I noticed that even just preparing for today, I was shaking, and I sometimes can't feel my body. Like, I mean, it's really like the dissociation that happens when we come from like changing how we were taught to see the world as children to like integrating that deeply in our body. And I wanted to share just a few stories from growing up. Well, just one story. This is actually from I was back in Los Alamos a few years ago, and I made a casual visit to former neighbors. And I was just thinking I'm going to drop in and give a hug and catch up about our families. But one of the neighbors pulled me aside. He's a not yet retired 90-year-old physicist, and he said that it was really important that I knew that he had just written a paper about resuming nuclear testing, and how the United States needs to resume nuclear testing so that the nuclear arsenal is ready should it be needed, because the arsenal is aging. And this was just like neighborhood conversation. And he explained to me how 1 million Americans were saved in 1945 by dropping those bombs. And I didn't even but this was just like, it just felt normal to have a conversation like this. This is what I grew up with. And actually just today, I found actually the David Swanson, who wrote this book, I went to his blog, and he made reference to a telegram on July 13th, 1945, which was even before the first nuclear weapons explosion. There was an explosion July 16th, 1945, which was called the Trinity Test in New Mexico. Japan sent a telegram to the Soviet Union saying that they wanted to surrender and end the war. July 13th, 1945. And the way that the US know about this is that they had code breakers, and they had broken Japan's communications code and were able to read this telegram. And in Truman's diary, he said that the telegram from Jap Emperor asking for peace, he made reference to that, the telegram from Jap Emperor asking for peace. So President Truman, who ordered the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, knew that the Japanese had put out an expression of a desire to make peace. But Japan did not want to surrender unconditionally and give up their emperor, but the United States wouldn't agree to those terms. So like, I grew up on this idea. We saved 1 million American lives, and even the and there are many people today who have family members who know that their father, grandfather was saved by dropping these bombs. That's a story that we often tell in the United States. But in reality, dropping the bombs may have lengthened the war, the desire to drop these bombs. And there's evidence that it was really about the Russians and the US having the hand up. And there's a lot of resonance today to that a few key political leaders who have power pulling strings. And yeah, Marcina, did you want to say something?
Well, I if you don't mind, I would kind of, there's a place where I wanted to really honor this day because, 80 years ago, there were over 80,000 people that lost their lives. And part of what we always talk about with Reconsider, and even in the films that we're doing, is that perspective and narratives are everything. And the ability to understand and make the unconscious conscious. Because we can look at how we got to where we got to with the dropping of the bomb. And really what we're, I think, coming together for now is to really kind of honor what's happening right now and the stories that and the narratives that we're holding both collectively and individually, and the way of being able to look at where we want to go as humanity. And I think one of the most compelling things when I was speaking to you was that birthing from the narrative, understanding that all of us are born into these ongoing narratives, and the difficulty that it is in actually facing some of the narratives that we're dealing with. We have people working at Lockheed Martin and other areas that they too are making a living off of the creation of weapons. Every American is participating in the selling of arms. How do we have these stories without creating another villain, but rather be able to have these conversations so that we can understand. I thought was one of the most important things when I talked with you was understanding where Los Alamos is right now in the process of the thinking of being able to generate more nuclear bombs, and the understanding that the bomb that was released in Hiroshima would be considered a very low grade nuclear bomb in today's world. And how do we, in one of the things I thought was beautiful about your story is that how easy it is to be raised in a way that you're never the villain. And what's happening right now in all these areas in the conflict is nobody wants to be seen as the villain. We've created justifications for doing this, and those justifications have justifications. How do we get out of the justifications and agree as humanity that we don't want to drop nuclear bombs on each other? Can we agree somewhere that this perhaps is not where humanity wants to go?
And thank you so much for that, Marcina. And I want to add that last night I watched a really beautiful documentary that's available on at pbs.org called "The Vow from Hiroshima," that is the story of Setsuko Thurlow, who was a survivor of the bombing of Hiroshima. She was, I believe, 13 years old at the time of the bombing. And she devoted, she's still alive in her 90s, she devoted her life to telling her story. And she devoted her life to getting the UN to ban nuclear weapons, which they have. It is illegal to have nuclear weapons. And my understanding is, I think 68 countries have ratified this ban on nuclear weapons. Unfortunately, the countries that have nuclear weapons have not participated in in ratifying this agreement. But it was so moving I highly recommend this. It's just an hour, The Vow from Hiroshima. It was so moving to just hear her commitment to abolishing nuclear weapons. She doesn't want anybody to have to go through the horrors she went through. And like what happened in the United States is that the information about what really happened was censored for the first few years. And that's also what we're dealing with now with Israel Palestine, is the censorship of information. And so it was just so important to hear her voice and her commitment, and that so important for us to speak the truth of what we know. And
Well, and I think one of the beautiful things about the way of honoring Hiroshima right now is that when they do the day of Hiroshima, they release lights into the water, and they do one for each person that was lost. And in that, it's bringing more light into the world, which I thought was really a beautiful way to commemorate the loss, is by turning it into what can we do to bring the light in even more.
And I attended like just on a live stream a few years back of the Hiroshima Day ceremony, where and I imagine they do this every year as well, is where they pray for peace. They have the flags of every nation, and they and I know that's problematic, and because not everybody fits into the nations, and but very beautiful that they pray for peace for every single people, every nation. um, and um, and I also just wanted to share one more just anecdote. Was that when I worked as a summer student at the what's called the Los Alamos National Laboratory. Although I've like in my consciousness changing, I now call it the Los Alamos National Nuclear Weapons Factory or headquarters. Um, and and I worked there on actually how do you take plutonium out of a river? How do you take low levels of plutonium out of a river? I now have come to understand is that there are high levels of plutonium near this river, but like there was just like a little bit of environmental cleanup that helped make the whole project seem more, oh, we're working on remediation. But while I was there, I was probably 20 years old. I got this idea it would be interesting to meet with the director of the laboratory. And so I called up his office, and they said, oh, come have lunch and bring 10 friends. And so we had lunch with the director of the laboratory. And I asked him, like, point blank, how do you deal with the environmental implications of nuclear weapons testing in Nevada? And he, without even taking a breath, he said, there is no evidence of environmental damage. And so he just calmly lied to me. And I've been processing, like, I didn't say more at that point. I was kind of silenced at that point. And I've been processing around, like, what if I were to go back and have that opportunity again, what would I do? And I just remember also my friends from high school who were with me just seemed like visibly uncomfortable that I had dared to ask such a question, because there's a code of silence that we don't. And this is, I imagine anybody who grows up in a one industry town, that there's just you don't attack the industry that allows the town to thrive and to flourish. We just had a particularly perverse industry. And that, as Stephen mentioned, that we were thinking that it could be very moving for our breakout groups to talk about what are the secrets, that where's the code of silence that that affects your own kind of relationship to the world. And I see there was a note in the Judy writing, same code of silence many of us grew up within Jewish families in the 50s. Judy, what do you mean by that?
There was a lot of idealism that our parents had when Israel was created as a country, and the war was over, and things seemed to be going in a better direction. And so Zionism actually is what I'm thinking of. That uh, we were the moral ones, and we were never going to repeat the mistakes that others had made, and also that, you know, Arabs and other people were other than us. I mean, so it was kind of a double message that was very confusing to process growing up. I won't be able to stay for the breakout groups, but I'm going to put in the chat a link if you're interested in knowing what's going on in Los Alamos now and how this is ramping up. There's a lot of information, and also that Los Alamos is one of the most polluted places in the world by plutonium. The plutonium contamination in the parks, in the hiking trails, and now in the Rio Grande is higher than most places in the world. Maybe there's some, test sites in Kazakhstan, places, and also that people in New Mexico, 5 generations after the detonation, are still suffering from cancers and having to work to prove it, that there was environmental damage and that it's remaining and it's continuing to harm people.
Yeah, thank you so much. And Judy lives in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and has been deeply involved in activism around this. And I also want to lift up that there's a new film out. I haven't yet had a chance to see it, called First We Bombed New Mexico, which talks about the plight of the people after that first, what they called the Trinity test on July 16th, 1945. Stephen, I'll turn it over to you. Also, Stephen and Marcina.
Stephen actually reminds me of what you always talk about the hero and the villain, and how we wake up every day. You want to talk about that?
Well, we've made 2 films in Palestine and Israel. And the first one, Disturbing the Peace, is really about how do we transcend those narratives that we're born into to tell us who are the good guys and who are the bad guys. Who do we love and who do we hate? And the title really came from, well, I won't go into it, but part of it was an imperative and an understanding that in order for us to establish something different, the first piece we need to be willing to disturb is our own. We wake up every morning and we know we're the hero of our story. We're just trying to figure out who the villain is. And we're good at figuring that out. And so the question is, are we willing to disturb our own peace, our own narratives that we've been born into, some that are conscious, some that are unconscious, that again tell us who are the good guys and who are the bad guys. It also, as you were talking, Malkah, it may seem trite, but maybe it is just because it's so obvious. But the song "Where Have All the Flowers Gone," the Pete Seeger song, came into my head, and really just the refrain of "When will we ever learn?"
Mm-hmm.
The bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, as horrible as it was, could have been a place of learning for humanity. It could have been a point of transition, of transformation. And in that, there would have been some honor to the people who sacrificed their lives.
Yeah.
We were doing research on a film several years ago, and the working title was 3 Minutes Till Midnight, A Love Story. And it was based on the setting of the hands of the doomsday clock, which was created by the atomic scientists after the dropping of the bombs. And the doomsday clock idea was to tell us how close we are to midnight, midnight being the self-annihilation of humanity on this planet. It started first with nuclear weapons, but it's now continued to include biological warfare, weapons of mass destruction, and now AI, among other things. We filmed the press conference of the scientists announcing the resetting of the hands of the clock back in 2016 to 3 minutes till midnight. It's now at 80 seconds. After they made the announcement, we sat and with the scientists and filmed them. And they sat there with tears in their eyes, thinking, how do we tell a story that is as compelling as all of the media we're being fed on a regular basis that distracts us? How do we tell a story compelling enough for people to listen to what we're doing to ourselves? The first piece we need to be willing to disturb is our own.
And I think one of the powerful things is to understand that everything makes sense. There's not one thing that happens in this universe that does not make sense in this world. The question is, how does it make sense? And so, whatever's driving us to head in this direction, can we step back and actually feel the fear that people have, the stories that they're caught in, the need for a sense of survival in a town where that is the survival? How do we have the authentic conversations rather than vilifying, but we can actually sit down and say, this is where it's coming from. Is there another way out of this? And so that we don't create more resistance to something, because if we do not change the direction that we're heading in, then we can make bigger and bigger bombs and believe somehow in our psyche that that's going to save us. It's really fascinating.
I want to share that a really important part of the waking up work that I've done that's been somewhat surprising is that I held in my psyche that I am a destroyer. I somehow carried a sense of responsibility for what happened in the town. And maybe part of it, I'm a super sensitive soul and living in a place where like the truth that's underlying all those there's a lot, all the feelings are just not spoken. They're just there in the energy field. And I picked that up and I carried it. And it's just learning, like I've learning that I'm not the destroyer, and neither is any particular person who's been caught up in that system the destroyer. And that the importance, the deep, deep importance we in having compassion for ourselves and the fullness of our being, in the ways we've been part of the perpetrator cycle, and the ways we've been victimized, and that recognizing that part of being a human being is being caught in this victim perpetrator cycle, and to have love for us when we're victim and love for us when we're perpetrator, but that it's what keeps coming is the importance of finding truth and not being afraid to travel through that emotional morass to speak truth that we when we learn, because part of what's going on is that we've been fed a lot of untruths in order to divide us. And I would like to read the piece that I wrote for our vigil last night, and then maybe we'll go into breakout rooms.
If we can stop for just 1 second, because I want to address what Amita said, because Amita, that's exactly what Steve was saying, is that that we have a tendency to wake up and put ourselves always in a hero position and then find who our villain is, rather than understanding that there's no villain. We don't need to be the hero because we don't need to create a villain. And so it's actually meeting other people, not from a state of being the hero, but actually being open to understanding the narratives that we create around it. Does that make sense? Yeah, so it's
Well, I mean, what I'm saying is that there's also this opposite tendency that like Malkah Binah just said, like, oh, I'm the terrible one, and
Mm.
you're the beautiful, perfect, innocent one, and I'm bad. And now if I ally myself with you and I try to and I like kind of push away a part of myself, or I deny the part of myself, and I just ally myself with you, now I'm good.
mm,
This is very much something that happens in this, particularly around Israel, Gaza, with so many Jews. I am a defender, protector of the Palestinians. I'm a good one versus those bad ones. And
ex-
what I love about this space, this SATYAM space that Mai and David have been, and everyone else, is that really there's no bad ones.
exactly. That's
And
what Steve was saying. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly what he was saying.
But, you know, we one of the things that the combatants for peace talk about is the importance of owning their capacity for violence, with the understanding that if they don't, they inevitably project it on whoever they consider to be the other, and then use violence to defend themselves against it. But at the same time, they're also recognizing their capacity for peace, for compassion, and for love, the fullness of what it means to be human. So I think in that, the calling is exactly as you're saying, is for us to own all of it. To be fully human is to have the capacity for violence. It's
And
also to have the capacity for compassion and love. And
right.
in recognizing that, and that that's our choice at every moment, we integrate all aspects of what it is to be human and recognize ourselves as that. So it's not to identify one or the other as either. It's to accept all of that within us and within each other.
And I do think that, for me, being involved with this as an American and being involved since, 2016 as our first film was coming out, is, there is a place of taking responsibility for the role that we're playing without even needing to make the US the villain either. Is that there's a dark spot in every culture, religion, and country. How do we address the darkness within our culture, religion, and society inside of ourselves? As David was saying, it starts inside of ourselves. And so the talking about Los Alamos to me was an important part of looking at a shadow part of the United States and understanding that the role that it also plays in what happened in Hiroshima, and how Hiroshima now, even in its acknowledgement of what happened, comes through in lights candles so that we can all remember that this isn't the right path. There's another way.
Mm. And it's also such an important piece of this story is about healing our traumas.
Yeah.
And part of what enabled the Manhattan Project, this project to bring nuclear weapons into the world, was playing off the fears and traumas of Jewish scientists and telling them the Germans are making this bomb. And even though, and they kept the lie going because I think pretty early on in the project, they knew the Germans were not making the bomb. But it was kind of this, it became like this competition. If the Germans are going to get this, we better get it first. But in reality, it was actually, and my sense is that it was um, an act of, if the Americans hadn't done it at that time, we may not have had nuclear weapons because it took so much effort and so much concentrated effort. And it's not inevitable. Just because something's technically possible doesn't mean that it has to happen. And shall I go ahead and share the piece I wrote yesterday?
Please.
And I'm just so grateful for to be here in community with all of you today, and to be like really honoring this anniversary. And I see this as part of the United States has never like formally apologized, never really owned we as that, and never really used that word of we brought nuclear weapons into the world, and we're deeply sorry, and that's part of it. And so it's just I share this with deep humility. 80 years ago, a gadget code-named Little Boy unleashed horror on a city in Japan, on a city full of people, young, old, mothers, fathers, 70,000 humans instantly obliterated, human beings with feelings, with compassion, with dreams, just like we dream, they dreamed. They are not our enemies. Little Boy and Fat Man were heroes in Los Alamos. Models of them were on proud display at the Science Museum. They saved American lives. They saved 1 million American lives and ended the war. That's what we were taught in Los Alamos. The name of our school district was not printed on the side of the big yellow school bus that took us to competitions around the state. It was not advertised that we were from Los Alamos. I understood that folks might not like us and might be jealous for we had extra money for our schools. Better not rub it in. Only now, after nuclear scientists were targeted in Iran, am I realizing that maybe it was a strategy to protect the kids of nuclear scientists from being taken hostage, and perhaps more fundamental, to protect the kids of nuclear scientists from waking out of the delusion that nuclear weapons are good. Nuclear weapons are good. That's what we were taught. Nuclear weapons save lives. Nuclear weapons give your parents good jobs. You live in a beautiful place. Keep your mouth shut. Don't ask questions. Don't believe the people who suggest that there is a cancer cluster in town. That's not possible. They're crazy. And plus, your phone is probably being tapped, so keep your mouth shut. When I went away in the summer, I felt embarrassed to tell people where I was from. They would joke that I glowed in the dark. They were right about one thing. I was in the dark. Today, I sit in the pain of what humans do to other humans. And for those of you who are new, this is your first time, I encourage you to, if you're able to stay, to join the breakout room. And it's a really just sweet, intimate space to share from our hearts. And Stephen, do you want to offer the prompt?
I think maybe to speak to what we've chosen to be silent about, where we want to find our voice.
Okay, so welcome back to everyone. Our breakout was giving you something of meaning. This is like I just said to Marcina, this is a conversation that could carry on forever, and also an essence of it that maybe we can take with us. What is good? What is bad? How can we look at these things in ourselves? It's a spiritual path that we can go on for a long time, how to not hate or make others. Can we maybe invite one or two voices
we've traveled through a lot. Maybe I'll close with a chant. And just again holding David and May with such gentleness, and just that the art of being a spiritual leader and an activist, it's that this is a marathon or a relay race, and we each take the baton for a certain period of time, and praying for their wise discernment about when it's time to transition back to feeding their bodies, and praying for their well-being. This is a poem by Dina Metzger, who is in her late 80s and has been an important teacher to me in supporting me in finding my voice. I'm just so grateful for all of you, because your presence today is helping me find my voice. There are those who would set fire to the world. We are in danger. There is time only to move slowly. There is no time not to love. There are those who would set fire to the world. We are in danger. There is time only to move slowly. There is no time not to love. Hide, 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 hide. Hide, 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 hide. Hide, 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 hide. Hide, hide, hide. Hide, 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 hide. Hide, hide.
Thank you.
We have a memorial candle that we lit last night, the moment that the first bomb was dropped, and it will continue to burn over these next days through Friday evening when the second bomb was dropped. And tonight at 7:00, we'll be back on a Zoom just for a quiet meditation together for half an hour for anybody who would like to join us.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
I wanted to share a sentence from the Quran that I felt that resonated with everyone who spoke today, starting with David. It's from the Quran, and it's God speaking to the people and saying, "Inna Allah la yughayyiru ma biqawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim." And the translation is that God will not change what happens to the people until the people change what happens in themselves, in their own spirit and body. And I felt it really when David spoke this, it kept going on and on in my mind. And I hope that each and every one of us, with also holding this feeling of being only a drop in the sea, understand that it does make change when we put this effort to change ourselves.
Thank you.
Roz, there's a question in the chat if you can give us the reference for the verse from the Quran.
Yes, and I can look it up, and I can send it on maybe on the WhatsApp group. if that's okay. Or no, I can look it up now. So whoever wants to know, I just don't want to keep everybody to hold everybody here. So whoever is interested, I'll look it up exactly which ayah it is from the surah in the
Yep.
Quran.
And we'll also put a link to the meditation for tonight in the chat as well.
Okay. And also, I think, Kaisa, can you stay with Alexander and whoever wants to talk about what Alexander raised?
So shall we stop the recording?
Mhm.
I was just going to say that to everyone, thank you on behalf of SATYAM. Thank you, everyone who are coming here week after week, day after day. Thank you to the new people who are coming first time tonight. You're welcome to join us tomorrow as well. So thank you.